Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. We have a story here about the Deviant Imp and his strange worldview and his utter, I don't know what you call it, he's living in a state of denial, I suppose. Because he's saying things that he wishes were true, but all the evidence points to the complete opposite of what he's saying. And he's trying to defend his views on rent control, on the right of tenants not to be thrown out, and on so many different things. Now, this comes from an unusual source, not a usual kind of paper that I do. It was something that somebody pointed to me towards, and it's like a trade website, as it were, for the property market. But having sort of glanced at the beginning of it, I can see straight away that the man is delusional. I mean, we know he's stupid. We know he's a Marxist. We know he hasn't got a brain cell in his head. He's uneducated. He's never had a real job. And yet he still thinks that he's able to sit there and pontificate and tell us how we should live. But on this one, he's just out plain wrong. And it's amusing. So I just thought I'd present this for your amusement, so we can all laugh, point to the silly little man and call him a twonk. Here goes. Right, this article comes from a webpage, property118.com. I've never come across it before. Someone's pointed me to it. Thank you very much. And I'm glad they have. Because in it, just a small piece, but within this is a real insight into the inner, I'm going to say workings and use that word completely wrongly, but the inner worldview of Harvie and the strange things he must obviously think are true, even though once we go into it you'll see that they're not. It's sheer lunacy. Anyway, we'll go on this little journey through the looking glass of Patrick Harvie's weird mind. Patrick Harvie defends Scotland's rent cap against critics, and by critics he means everyone else in the entire universe, because only he thinks the things that he's thinking. Scottish Greens co-leader Patrick Harvie has defended Scotland's rent cap, saying that many thousands of tenants have been helped and that predictions that landlords would leave the sector were false. Well, let's just address the second point first. Many thousands of landlords have left the sector. Thousands upon thousands of houses have been sold up and gone, and starting very soon, thousands more will follow. There are many reasons for this. One, of course, is the rent cap itself and the controls that's being put on. Secondly, there is the proposal to even more tighten it in and bring in a universal rent cap, which will see even more leave. And of course, come 2027, it will be an absolute dump fest for rental properties, because in 2027 all private rental properties must have heat pumps, and the landlords don't have 25, 30, 35, even £40,000 per rental property. And in terms of rent, they will never recoup that loss ever. There isn't enough time left in their lives to recoup that money, and so they will just sell the properties, dump it. House price across Scotland will fall. People will be stuck in negative equity. It'll be the final destruction of the housing market, which I actually think is his preferred conclusion. I think it's actually part of his plan. He wants the housing market in Scotland to be destroyed. He hates the idea, being the little Marxist that he is, that people actually own their own homes. Goes against everything he stands for. But the other thing that he was saying there is, and what was the line? That many thousands of tenants have been helped. Well, the tenants won't be helped when they're being thrown out of their rental properties because the landlords need to sell them, are dumped on the streets homeless, and that the local authorities don't have the facilities to house them because, first of all, there's no rental properties available. They're not building any rental properties. Because of the licensing on short-term rents, they're going to have struggled to find short-term rental properties. And because of the destruction of the housing industry and the house building industry in Scotland, all at the hands of Patrick Harvie, nobody will even be building rental properties for social renting. because the rules and regulations are so tight that he has helped create. All the actual real builders who do the physical work, your chippies, your carpenters, your sparkies, your roofers and so on, they'll all be down in England, where the house building boom will continue apace. And what's he going to do? He's destroying it. One tiny little moron with his tiny little penis, thinking he's important and hating the fact that other people own their homes, because he doesn't. He rents a little flat alone. The Tenants' Rights Minister was speaking at the Scottish Greens conference, and he offered a robust defence of the rent cap. Mr Harvie said his party was committed to a new deal for tenants. The new deal being, we'll provide you with cardboard boxes and a bridge to sleep under. He said, I do know what it's like to be harassed out of a flat by an abusive landlord. I'm proud we can deliver that new deal. If a landlord is abusive to you, Patrick, it must be for a reason. And I'm actually going to side with the landlord now. Anyone having you as a tenant is bound to be wound up. He said the rent freeze has helped many thousands over the last 18 months. Well, it's helped many landlords decide that it's time to sell up. And that's the case. 20,000 fewer rental properties on the market today than when the day you entered as part of government. 20,000 have gone, and it's continuing apace. He said Mr Harvie also discussed the imbalance of power in private renting and said that housing is a human right. He said he was proud that we brought in an emergency rent freeze, and it's something that has helped many thousands of people. The rent cap was protecting them against literally unendurable rent hikes. Well, what's happening now then? Highest rent hikes in Europe. Edinburgh, 12%, 15%, I believe. Glasgow, 12%. The average for Scotland is about 11%, because they just keep changing at the end of tenancies. Get rid of one, new tenant comes in, bang, it's up. Why? 4 years now of artificially held rents. It's got to be unleashed. Things go up. You know, maintenance car charges go up, insurances go up, everything increases. It's not sustainable. But, you know, a moron who doesn't understand economics doesn't get it. He said, claims that the emergency rent cap would also lead to a reduction in available property, he said, have also proved to be false, with the number of rented properties in Scotland actually increasing in the period of the cap. Let me tell you something. That is a lie. That is Harvie standing there and telling an absolute lie. Rents are increasing because of the shortage of houses. People are selling up. 20,000, as I mentioned, have gone. He's standing there and lying to his own people because he daren't tell them the truth. Mr Harvie acknowledged that the rents have continued to rise between tenancies because that's what's going to happen in a free market. He said that's just one aspect of a system that isn't delivering that human right to housing in the way that it should. Well, when your particular policies lead to an increase in rents, you have to wonder who is at fault here. He also said he was proud of the plans for bringing a permanent system of rent controls in Scotland. And that is the day Scottish housing dies. He said we should never accept that rents can simply spiral out of control. They don't. That's the whole point, you moron. They can't spiral out of control. Rents will rise to meet what the market can sustain. If you have a property and you put it up for too much rent and nobody rents it, well, you're going to have to reduce your price until somebody does. That's how it works. He said the delegates applauded that statement and added it's not a luxury to allow tenants to have pets and redecorate, and that Scotland will strengthen the power of tenants to fight eviction. And there we go. And once they keep bringing these more and more tighter and tighter laws, more and more landlords sell up, fewer and fewer houses, and then of course you've got the big dump coming in 2027. And then what's he going to do? He's going to look upon the destruction of the Scottish housing market and snigger and laugh and rub his hands in glee and go, ha ha ha, finally. Because that's where he is. That's who he is. That's what he is. He's a strange little deviant imp who thinks homelessness is something to be proud of. He's going to create an awful lot of it. Coming up. He really hasn't got a clue what he's unleashed. And it is quite clear to anyone, and I count myself as an expert on this field because I've done my whole life. I've worked in sort of construction accounts and operations and things like that. So I know whereof I speak. Worked for a house builder for 25 years, but even before that I worked for other aspects of construction, builder suppliers or things like that. And all I can say is Harvie gets it wrong on every single fact. And I use the word fact. Every single opinion he has, it's wrong. And what he's doing cumulatively will absolutely 100% destroy the Scottish house building industry, the Scottish housing industry, the Scottish estate agency industry. It's going to drive firms to the wall. Those who can move south will invest below the line, as it were. Every contractor will go south to England because there'll be no construction in Scotland. And the house price crash in Scotland will put so many people in negative equity that people will be living in inappropriate houses for a long time. And it may never, ever recover. Certainly not within a 25 to 30 year frame. That's how bad it is. And that is single-handedly down to Harvie and his policies. Strap on, because I tell you what, Scotland, you're in for a very rough ride starting in about 2.5 years. Even sooner if that rent control law comes in. Thanks for listening. Do please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. And when it all happens, remember that I told you here first. Thank you. Goodbye.